Beloved child of the divine, I am Michael, Archangel of protection, strength, and unwavering truth. I stand before you today not as a distant celestial being, but as a companion who has witnessed your journey, every sacrifice you have made, every piece of yourself you have given to others. I see you now in this moment of profound questioning, when the very foundation of who you thought you were seems to have shifted beneath your feet. You have given so much for so long that you no longer recognize the person staring back at you in the mirror. The purpose that once burned so brightly within your heart has dimmed, and you wonder if the flame will ever return. I want you to know that I have been with you through every act of service, every sacrifice, every moment when you chose another's needs above your own. I witnessed the young mother you were, rising before dawn to prepare meals, to comfort crying children, to give of yourself before you had even given to yourself. I saw the professional who poured countless hours into work that mattered, believing that your contribution would create lasting change. I observed the caregiver who set aside dreams and desires to tend to aging parents, to support a struggling spouse, to be the rock upon which everyone else could build their lives. I have walked beside the volunteer, the mentor, the friend who always answered the call, who never said no when someone was in need. You have been all of these things and more, and your giving has been genuine, profound, and holy. But now you find yourself in a strange and unsettling place. The children have grown and no longer need you in the ways they once did. The career that defined you has ended or changed so dramatically that you barely recognize it. The people you cared for have passed on or moved into different phases of life. The organizations that once depended on you have found others to fill the roles you occupied. And in this new reality, you are left with a question that echoes through the chambers of your heart like a voice in an empty cathedral. Who am I when I am no longer needed? What is my purpose when there is no one left to give to? These questions are not signs of weakness or ingratitude. They are the natural response of a soul who has structured an entire existence around the beautiful, exhausting, sacred act of giving, only to discover that the structure itself has fundamentally changed. I come to you today with a message that may surprise you, that may even challenge everything you believe about yourself and your worth. You have not lost your purpose, beloved one. You have completed one chapter of purpose and are being called into another, deeper, more profound chapter that you could not have entered while you were still consumed by the demands of constant giving. This transition you are experiencing, this sense of emptiness and confusion, is not an ending. It is a threshold. And I am here to guide you across it, to help you understand what is happening in your soul and to illuminate the path that lies ahead. Let me begin by telling you something that may be difficult to hear, but is nonetheless true. Much of what you believe to be your purpose was never truly your purpose at all. It was a role, a responsibility, a season of service that you were called to fulfill, and you fulfilled it beautifully, with grace and dedication that brought light into the lives of countless others. But you are not your roles. You are not the sum total of the services you have provided. You are not defined by your usefulness to other people. This is the first and most important truth you must grasp if you are to move forward into the fullness of what awaits you. For so many years, your identity became entangled with your giving. When someone asked who you were, you described what you did for others. I am a mother. I am a teacher. I am a caregiver. I am a helper. These descriptions are not false, but they are incomplete. They describe functions, not essence. They tell what you have done, not who you are. And now that many of these functions have diminished or disappeared, you feel as though you yourself have diminished or disappeared. But I tell you this with all the authority of heaven behind my words. You have not disappeared. You have been revealed. The roles and responsibilities that once covered you like layers of clothing have been removed, and for the first time in decades, you have the opportunity to see yourself as you truly are, not as you have functioned. This revelation can be terrifying because you have spent so long not looking at yourself. When you were busy giving, you did not have to examine your own needs, your own wounds, your own unfulfilled longings. The constant demands of others provided a convenient distraction from the parts of yourself that remained undeveloped, unexplored, unhealed. As long as someone needed you, you had a reason to get up in the morning, a purpose that felt clear and measurable. But now the distraction has been removed, and you are face to face with yourself, perhaps for the first time in your adult life. And in that face, you see not only the beauty of all you have given, but also the cost of what you have neglected. I do not say this to bring you shame, but to bring you understanding. You are not broken because you feel lost without your roles. You are human. You are a soul who learned to find meaning in being needed, and now you must learn to find meaning in simply being. This is one of the most profound spiritual transitions a person can undergo, and you are in the midst of it right now. The emptiness you feel is not permanent. It is the space that must be created before something new can emerge. You cannot fill a cup that is already full, and you cannot receive a new purpose while you are still clinging to the old one. So let us talk about what it means to be in this liminal space, this uncomfortable place between who you were and who you are becoming. First, I want you to understand that this transition is not a punishment for anything you did wrong. You did not give too much. You did not love too deeply. You did not sacrifice too greatly. You lived the values that were instilled in you, values of service and selflessness that are indeed noble and good. But every season has its time, and the season of constant outward giving has come to an end, not because you have failed, but because you have succeeded. You have fulfilled that particular calling, and now you are being invited into something different. Many people in your position make the mistake of trying to recreate the past. They desperately search for new people to help, new causes to champion, new ways to make themselves indispensable. They volunteer for everything, they overcommit. They exhaust themselves trying to recapture the sense of purpose that came from being needed. But this is like trying to wear clothes that no longer fit. The roles may look similar on the surface, but they do not feel the same because you are not the same. You have grown. You have changed. And what once brought you fulfillment may now bring only fatigue and frustration. If you find yourself compulsively seeking ways to give, ask yourself an honest question. Am I giving from a place of genuine love and inspiration? Or am I giving because I do not know who I am without it? There is a profound difference between service that flows from wholeness and service that flows from emptiness. The purpose you are seeking now is not something external that you must find or create. It is something internal that you must allow to emerge. For decades, your energy flowed outward, like a river running toward the sea. Now it is time for that energy to flow inward, like rain soaking into parched ground. This is not selfishness. This is wisdom. You cannot give from an empty well, and your well has run dry not because you did anything wrong, but because it is time to replenish it. It is time to ask questions you have not asked in years, perhaps in your entire life. What do I need? What do I want? What brings me joy not because it helps someone else, but simply because it lights up my soul? Who am I when no one is watching, when no one is asking anything of me? These questions may feel foreign, even uncomfortable, but they are holy questions. They are the questions that lead you back to yourself. I know that for people like you, people who have spent a lifetime giving, the idea of focusing on yourself can feel wrong, even sinful. You have been taught that thinking of yourself is selfish, that true virtue lies in self-sacrifice. And while there is truth in the beauty of sacrifice, there is also a deeper truth that you must now embrace. You cannot lose yourself in service to others and call it virtue. You cannot neglect your own soul and call it love. The divine did not create you to be a hollow vessel through which blessings flow to others while you yourself remain empty. You were created to be filled, to be whole, to experience the abundance of life, not just as a conduit, but as a recipient. Think for a moment about the instructions given on an airplane. In the event of an emergency, you are told to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. This is not selfishness. This is survival. This is wisdom. You cannot help anyone if you have suffocated. And yet, in your spiritual and emotional life, you have been trying to give oxygen to everyone around you while you yourself struggle to breathe. The dizziness you feel, the confusion, the sense of purposelessness, these are symptoms of oxygen deprivation. You need to put on your own mask. You need to breathe. And only then can you clearly see what comes next. Let me share with you what I have observed in the lives of those who successfully navigate this transition. They begin by making peace with the past. They look back on their years of giving not with regret or resentment, but with gratitude and completion. They acknowledge the beauty of what they did, the love they expressed, the difference they made. But they also release the need for that time to continue. They understand that seasons change, and they honor the season that has passed without trying to artificially extend it. This is harder than it sounds, because letting go of a purposeful past can feel like betrayal, like saying that all those years did not matter. But that is not what you are saying at all. You are simply saying that those years have fulfilled their purpose, and now it is time for something new. Part of making peace with the past involves grieving what has ended. You are allowed to feel loss. You are allowed to miss the days when you were needed, when your life had clear direction and measurable impact. You are allowed to mourn the version of yourself who knew exactly what to do and when to do it. Grief is not weakness. Grief is love with no place to go. And when you allow yourself to grieve, when you give yourself permission to feel the sadness of this transition, you create space for something new to be born. Do not rush through this grief. Do not try to be positive and optimistic before you are ready. Sit with the loss, honor it, let it teach you what it needs to teach you. And in time, the grief will soften, and you will discover that beneath it lies something unexpected. Freedom. Yes, freedom. Because while you have lost the structure and identity that came from constant giving, you have also been released from the burden of it. You no longer have to be everything to everyone. You no longer have to carry the weight of other people's needs on your shoulders. You no longer have to monitor everyone else's emotional temperature and adjust yourself accordingly. You no longer have to prove your worth through productivity and service. You are free to simply be. And this freedom, while terrifying at first, is the gateway to a purpose far more profound than anything you have known before. The new purpose I speak of is not about doing. It is about becoming. It is not about how much you can give to others. It is about how deeply you can know yourself and the divine. It is not about filling your calendar with activities and obligations. It is about filling your soul with presence and peace. This may sound vague or insubstantial compared to the concrete roles you once filled, but I assure you it is the most important work you will ever do. The world does not need more exhausted givers who have lost themselves in service. The world needs whole people who give from overflow, not from depletion. And you cannot become that person until you do the inner work of discovering who you are beyond your roles. So how do you begin this inner work? You begin by creating space. Space in your schedule, space in your mind, space in your heart. You are likely so accustomed to filling every moment with activity that the idea of empty time feels uncomfortable, even wasteful. But I encourage you to embrace the emptiness. Schedule time when you have nothing planned, nowhere to be, no one to help. Sit in the silence. Let your mind wander. Notice what thoughts arise when you are not distracted by tasks and responsibilities. This practice of simply being present with yourself is profoundly challenging for those who have spent decades avoiding it, but it is essential. You cannot hear the voice of your soul when you are constantly drowning it out with noise and busyness. As you create space, pay attention to what brings you joy. Not what you think should bring you joy, not what brings joy to others, but what genuinely lights you up from the inside. Maybe it is something you have not done in years. Maybe it is something you have never allowed yourself to do because it seemed frivolous or self-indulgent. Maybe it is as simple as sitting in nature, or reading poetry, or creating art, or learning a new skill. Whatever it is, give yourself permission to pursue it without justification, without making it useful or productive. Let yourself experience joy for its own sake. This is not trivial. This is sacred. This is you learning to honor the part of yourself that has been neglected for far too long. You may also need to examine the beliefs that have kept you locked in patterns of compulsive giving. Where did you learn that your worth depends on your usefulness? Who taught you that rest is laziness and self-care is selfishness? What experiences convinced you that you must earn love through service? These beliefs did not appear out of nowhere. They were planted in you, often in childhood, often by well-meaning people who themselves did not understand the difference between healthy giving and self-abandonment. And now it is time to uproot these beliefs and replace them with truth. The truth is that you are worthy simply because you exist. You do not have to do anything to deserve love, belonging, or purpose. You are beloved by the divine not because of what you do, but because of who you are. And who you are is a precious, irreplaceable soul who deserves to be cherished, including by yourself. This brings me to a crucial point. Part of your new purpose is learning to give to yourself with the same generosity you have given to others. What would it look like if you treated yourself the way you have treated the people you love? If you spoke to yourself with the kindness you extend to others? If you prioritized your own needs the way you have prioritized everyone else's? This is not narcissism. This is balance. This is recognizing that you are just as deserving of care and compassion as anyone you have ever served. Start small. Take yourself on a walk just because you want to. Prepare a meal that you love, even if no one else is there to share it. Buy yourself flowers. Take a nap without feeling guilty. Say no to requests that drain you. These small acts of self-kindness may feel awkward or even wrong at first, but with practice, they will become more natural. And as they do, you will notice something miraculous. You will begin to feel less empty, less lost, less without purpose. Because you will realize that you have been the one person you have been neglecting, and caring for yourself is a purpose worthy of your attention. Now, I want to address a fear that many people in your position experience. You may be afraid that if you stop giving in the ways you always have, you will lose your connections to the people you love. You may worry that if you are not constantly available and helpful, you will be forgotten or discarded. This fear is understandable, but it is also revealing. If your relationships are based solely on what you do for others, then they are not true relationships. They are transactions. And while it may be painful to discover which of your connections fall into this category, it is also liberating. Because once you stop performing and start being authentic, the relationships that remain will be based on genuine love, not utility. And those are the relationships worth nurturing. At the same time, do not be surprised if some people are uncomfortable with your transformation. When you change the role you have always played, it disrupts the system. People who have become accustomed to you being available, accommodating, and self-sacrificing may resist your new boundaries. They may accuse you of being selfish or different or not yourself. But remember this, their discomfort is not your responsibility. You are not obligated to shrink yourself back into old patterns just to make others comfortable. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to become who you truly are, even if it challenges other people's expectations. And the people who truly love you will adjust. They will support your growth, even if it requires them to adjust their own behavior. The people who cannot or will not adjust were never honoring the fullness of who you are anyway. As you move through this transition, you will also need to redefine what success means to you. For years, success may have been measured by how many people you helped, how much you accomplished, how indispensable you made yourself. But those metrics no longer serve you. In this new chapter, Success is measured by your inner peace, your self-awareness, your alignment with your authentic self. Success is waking up and feeling content with who you are, not what you do. Success is going through an entire day without abandoning yourself to please someone else. Success is honoring your needs without guilt. Success is knowing yourself deeply and loving what you discover. These are not lesser achievements. They are greater ones because they reflect a maturity and wholeness that cannot be found in external accomplishments alone. I also want to speak to those of you who are facing this transition later in life, perhaps in your 60s, 70s, or beyond. You may feel that it is too late to discover a new purpose, that you have missed your opportunity, that the best years are behind you. But I tell you with absolute certainty, it is never too late. The divine's plan for your life does not have an expiration date. You are not too old to grow, to change, to discover new dimensions of yourself. In fact, this stage of life offers unique gifts that were not available to you when you were younger. You have wisdom earned through decades of experience. You have perspective that only time can provide. You have less to prove and less to fear. You have the freedom that comes from knowing that other people's opinions do not define you. These are powerful assets, and they position you perfectly for the deep inner work that this transition requires. Do not waste this precious time wishing you were younger or regretting what you did not do. Embrace where you are right now and trust that this moment, this very moment, holds everything you need. For some of you, this transition may also involve physical limitations that were not present when you were younger. Perhaps illness or injury has made it impossible to give in the ways you once did, and this has compounded your sense of purposelessness. You feel not only unneeded but unable, and the combination is devastating. If this is your experience, I want you to hear me clearly. Your purpose has never been dependent on your physical capabilities. You are not less valuable because you cannot do what you once did. The essence of who you are, the light of your soul, is not diminished by the limitations of your body. In fact, this limitation may be the very thing that forces you into the deeper purpose you have been avoiding. When you can no longer rely on doing, you must learn the art of being. And being, truly being present to yourself and to the divine, is the highest form of purpose available to any soul. Let me also address the financial concerns that may accompany this transition. If your giving included your career, and you are now retired or unemployed, you may be facing financial insecurity in addition to existential uncertainty. You may feel that you cannot afford to take time for self-discovery, that you must immediately find another way to be productive and earn money. These concerns are valid and real, and I do not diminish them. But I also encourage you to trust that as you do the inner work of aligning with your authentic self, clarity about practical matters will emerge. Often, the reason we cannot see the next right step is because we are still operating from old patterns and assumptions. When you shift internally, external opportunities shift as well. This does not mean you sit back and wait for miracles to fall from the sky. It means you take practical action while also remaining open to possibilities you have not yet considered. And above all, it means you do not allow financial pressure to drive you back into patterns of compulsive giving that leave you depleted and disconnected from yourself. Now, as you move through this process of rediscovery, you may begin to notice something unexpected. You may find that you do want to give again, but in a completely different way. The giving that emerges from your new sense of purpose will not feel like obligation or duty. It will feel like joy. It will be smaller in scale, perhaps, but deeper in authenticity. You will give not because you are needed, but because you are moved. You will serve not to prove your worth, but to express your love. You will help not because you cannot say no, but because yes feels aligned with your soul. This is the difference between giving from depletion and giving from overflow, and it is a difference that changes everything. This new form of giving may not look anything like what you did before. It may not be grand or public, or even particularly noticeable. It may be as simple as offering presents to a friend, sharing wisdom with someone who asks, creating beauty that uplifts others, or holding space for someone who is struggling. It may be writing, or teaching, or mentoring in ways that honor your energy and boundaries. It may be advocating for a cause that matters to you, but on your own terms and in your own time. Whatever form it takes, it will feel right. It will feel sustainable. It will feel like an expression of who you are, not a denial of yourself. And this is the purpose you have been seeking all along. I want to pause here and speak directly to your heart. You are not a failure because you feel lost. You are not weak because you are struggling. You are not broken because the old ways no longer work. You are in transformation, and transformation is never comfortable. The caterpillar does not become a butterfly by staying the same. It must dissolve into formlessness before it can emerge with wings. You are in the dissolution phase right now, and it is dark and confusing and sometimes frightening. But I promise you, the wings are coming. You cannot see them yet, but they are forming. And when they finally unfold, you will look back on this time and understand that it was not the end of your purpose. It was the beginning of your truest purpose. So what do you do right now, in the midst of this uncertainty? You practice patience. You practice self-compassion. You practice trust. You remind yourself every single day that your worth is not determined by your productivity. You create space for silence and stillness. You explore what brings you joy. You grieve what has ended and stay open to what is beginning. You set boundaries that honor your energy. You speak kindly to yourself. You seek support from people who understand what you are going through. You read books, listen to teachers, engage with communities that affirm your journey. You pray, you meditate. You walk in nature. You journal. You do whatever helps you stay connected to yourself and to the divine. And perhaps most importantly, you stop waiting for someone or something outside of yourself to tell you what your purpose is. Your purpose is not a job description handed to you by fate. It is not a single, static role that you must discover and then fulfill for the rest of your life. Purpose is dynamic. It evolves as you evolve. And right now, in this season, your purpose is to heal, to rest, to rediscover who you are beneath all the roles you have played. Your purpose is to learn to love yourself, to honor your needs, to cultivate inner peace. Your purpose is to be present to your own life instead of constantly managing everyone else's. These may not sound like grand or important purposes compared to the roles you once filled, but they are the foundation upon which everything else will be built. And a life built on a foundation of self-knowledge and self-love is a life of profound purpose, even if the world never sees or acknowledges it. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine that you are sitting beside a river. For years, you have been drawing water from this river and carrying it to everyone who was thirsty. You walked miles every day, back and forth, your arms aching from the weight of the buckets, your feet blistered from the endless journey. And you did this gladly because you believed it was your purpose to ensure that no one went thirsty. But one day, you arrive at the river and discover that others have learned to draw their own water. They no longer need you to carry it for them. At first, you are devastated. If you are not the water carrier, who are you? What is your purpose now? But then, slowly, you begin to notice something you never noticed before. The river itself is beautiful. The sunlight dances on its surface. The sound of flowing water is soothing. The cool breeze feels wonderful on your tired skin. And for the first time in years, you sit down beside the river not to draw water for others, but simply to be present to its beauty. You dip your hands in and drink deeply yourself. You feel the water refresh you from the inside out. And you realize that you have spent so long serving the river by carrying its water to others that you never took time to receive what the river had to offer you. This is where you are now, beloved one. You are learning to receive. You are learning to be present. You are learning that you are not just the servant, but also the one worthy of being served. As you continue this journey, there will be moments of clarity and moments of confusion. There will be days when you feel hopeful and days when you feel lost. This is normal. Transformation is not linear. It does not follow a predictable path. But I am with you every step of the way. When you feel alone, call on me. When you feel afraid, ask for my protection. When you feel uncertain, ask for my guidance. I am not distant or unreachable. I am as close as your breath, as present as your heartbeat. And I am holding space for you to become everything you were created to be. Before I close, I want to leave you with a blessing and a call to action. The blessing is this. May you find the courage to release what has ended and embrace what is beginning. May you discover that your worth is inherent, not earned. May you learn to give to yourself with the same generosity you have given to others. May you find joy in simply being, not just doing. May you trust the process of transformation, even when it feels uncomfortable. May you know deep in your soul that you are loved beyond measure, that you are purposeful beyond roles, and that your life has meaning that extends far beyond what you can see or accomplish. This is my blessing for you, and it is sealed with the power of heaven. And now, the call to action. I invite you to take one small step today toward honoring yourself. It does not have to be dramatic or life-changing. It can be as simple as taking 10 minutes to sit in silence, or saying no to one thing that drains you, or doing one thing purely because it brings you joy. Just one small step. And then tomorrow, take another. And the day after that, another. These small steps will accumulate into a journey of profound transformation. You do not have to have it all figured out right now. You just have to be willing to take the next right step. If this message has resonated with you, if you feel that the divine is speaking directly to your heart through these words, I invite you to acknowledge that by simply typing Amen. Let that simple word be your agreement, your acceptance, your willingness to enter into this new chapter with hope and trust. And know that as you do, all of heaven is cheering for you, supporting you, and celebrating the beautiful unfolding of your true purpose. As you stand at this threshold, I want to speak to you about the specific challenges you may face in the days and weeks ahead. One of the most difficult aspects of this transition is the way it affects your daily routine. For years, your days had structure. You knew what needed to be done and when. You had people depending on you, schedules to keep, responsibilities that organized your time. And even though it was exhausting, there was a certain comfort in that predictability. Now you may wake up in the morning and feel paralyzed by the emptiness of the day ahead. You have nowhere you must be, nothing you must do, no one who needs you in urgent ways. And instead of feeling like freedom, it feels like drowning in an ocean with no shore in sight. This is when the voice of self-doubt becomes loudest. You begin to question everything. Did I waste my life serving people who did not appreciate me? Should I have focused more on my own dreams? Am I being punished for something I did wrong? Why do I feel so empty when I should feel proud of all I accomplished? These questions swirl in your mind, and if you are not careful, they can pull you into a spiral of regret and depression. So let me address each of these doubts with truth. First, you did not waste your life. Every act of genuine love, every sacrifice made from the heart, every moment you showed up for someone who needed you, these were not wasted. They mattered. They made a difference. They reflected the divine love flowing through you into the world. The problem was never that you gave. The problem was that you forgot to include yourself in the circle of people worthy of your care. You gave from a place that was supposed to be temporary, a season of intensive service, but you never allowed yourself to move into the next season. You stayed in the giving phase so long that it became your entire identity. And now that the season has changed, you feel lost because you never developed the other dimensions of yourself. This is not failure. This is a gap in your development that you are now being given the opportunity to fill. Second, it is natural to wonder about the road not taken. When you see peers who pursued careers, traveled the world, developed hobbies, maintained friendships, it is easy to feel that you missed out, and there may be truth in that. There may have been dreams you set aside, opportunities you declined, experiences you sacrificed. Acknowledging this does not dishonor your choices. It simply recognizes that every choice comes with a cost. You chose giving, and it cost you certain possibilities. That is okay. You are allowed to grieve those unrealized possibilities while also honoring the choice you made. And here is something important to understand. It is not too late. Yes, you cannot go back and change the past, but you can still pursue dreams, explore interests, and create experiences. The timeline looks different than it would have if you had started earlier, but the possibility still exists. Do not let the lie that it is too late steal the time you have left. Third, you are not being punished. This difficult transition is not divine retribution for mistakes you made. It is the natural consequence of a life lived out of balance. And consequences are not the same as punishment. A consequence is simply cause and effect. You focused all your energy outward for decades, and the consequence is that your inner world became neglected. You built your identity on being needed, and the consequence is that when the need diminished, your identity felt threatened. You never learned to rest, and the consequence is that you do not know how to be at peace with yourself. These consequences are actually gifts because they are showing you exactly what needs attention now. They are not evidence of failure. They are invitations to healing. Fourth, the emptiness you feel is not permanent. It is the space between stories. Your old story has ended. The story of yourself as the tireless giver, the one everyone could count on, the person who never said no. That story served you for a long time, but it is complete now. And before a new story can begin, there must be emptiness. There must be a blank page. You cannot write a new story on top of an old one. The words become jumbled and illegible. So the emptiness is necessary. It is preparation. And if you can resist the urge to fill it prematurely with busyness or new obligations or desperate attempts to recreate the old story, you will discover that within the emptiness, something is stirring. A new story is forming, one that is truer to who you actually are, not just who you have been trained to be. Let me offer you some practical guidance for navigating this empty space. First, establish a gentle routine that is not based on productivity or obligation, but on self-care and presence. Perhaps you begin each day with a few minutes of quiet reflection, asking the divine to guide you through the day. Perhaps you take a walk, not to get somewhere, but simply to move your body and notice the world around you. Perhaps you prepare a nourishing meal and eat it slowly, tasting each bite instead of rushing through it. Perhaps you spend time doing something creative, not to produce something impressive, but simply to engage your hands and your imagination. Perhaps you end each day with gratitude, naming 3 things you appreciated about the day, even if they were small. These simple practices create a container for your days without filling them with obligation. They remind you that life can have rhythm and meaning even when you are not busy serving others. Second, be very careful about how you spend your time on screens. When you are feeling empty and purposeless, it is tempting to fill the void with constant consumption of media, social scrolling, binge-watching shows, or endless news cycles. While these activities can provide temporary distraction, they do not provide fulfillment. In fact, they often make the emptiness worse, because they prevent you from actually being present to yourself. I'm not saying you should never enjoy entertainment or stay informed about the world. I am saying that if you are using screens to avoid feeling your feelings, to escape your thoughts, to numb the discomfort of this transition, then you are only prolonging the journey. Set boundaries for yourself. Limit screen time. Choose quality over quantity. And when you notice yourself reaching for distraction, pause and ask yourself what you are trying to avoid. Then turn toward that very thing with compassion and curiosity. Third, seek connection, but seek it wisely. You need people during this time, but not just any people. You need people who can hold space for your confusion without trying to fix you. You need people who will listen without judgment, who will validate your feelings without dismissing them, who will remind you of your worth when you forget. You do not need people who tell you to just get over it, who compare your struggles to others who have it worse, who offer platitudes and quick fixes. And you definitely do not need people who try to guilt you back into old patterns of giving because they are uncomfortable with your transformation. Choose your companions carefully. And if you cannot find these people in your immediate circle, seek them out through support groups, online communities, therapy, or spiritual direction. You do not have to walk this path alone, but you do have to be intentional about who walks it with you. Fourth, engage with your body. For years, you may have treated your body as a tool, a vehicle to carry you through endless tasks and responsibilities. You ignored its signals of fatigue, pain, hunger, and stress because there was too much to do. But your body is not just a tool. It is your home. It is where you live every single day of your life. And it holds wisdom that your mind cannot access. Begin to listen to your body. Notice where you feel tension and breathe into those places. Move in ways that feel good, not to burn calories or achieve fitness goals, but simply because movement is life and your body wants to move. Rest when you are tired, truly rest, without guilt or apology. Nourish yourself with foods that make you feel good. Touch things that have pleasant textures. Listen to sounds that soothe you. Your body has been carrying you faithfully for decades. It is time to honor it and care for it as the sacred vessel it is. Fifth, explore your relationship with the divine in new ways. For many people who have spent their lives giving, their spirituality has been primarily about service. Prayer was often petition for others or gratitude for the strength to keep serving. Worship was about duty and obligation. Scripture reading was about finding guidance for helping others. But what if spirituality could be about intimacy instead of duty? What if prayer could be conversation, not just requests? What if worship could be about experiencing the presence of the divine, not just performing religious activities? What if reading sacred texts could be about discovering yourself in the stories, not just extracting moral lessons? I invite you to experiment with different forms of spiritual practice. Try contemplative prayer, where you simply sit in silence with the divine. Try walking meditation, where you notice the sacred in nature. Try journaling as prayer, writing your honest thoughts and feelings to God without censoring yourself. Try reading mystical texts that speak of union with the divine, rather than just service to the divine. You may discover a dimension of spirituality that you never knew existed, one that fills you in ways that duty-based religion never could. Now, I want to address something that some of you may be experiencing but are afraid to speak about. You may be feeling anger. Anger at the people you served who did not appreciate you. Anger at the systems that took advantage of your generosity. Anger at yourself for not setting boundaries sooner. Anger at the divine for allowing you to reach this point of emptiness. And then you feel guilty for the anger because you have been taught that anger is not spiritual, that good people do not feel resentful, that gratitude should override all negative emotions. But let me tell you something crucial. Your anger is valid. It is information. It is your soul's way of telling you that something was out of balance, that boundaries were violated, that you were not honored as you should have been. Do not suppress your anger. Do not spiritualize it away with platitudes about forgiveness and letting go. Feel it. Express it in safe ways. Write it in a journal that no one else will read. Scream into a pillow. Have imaginary conversations where you say everything you never allowed yourself to say. Talk to a therapist who can help you process it. Your anger is not something to be ashamed of. It is part of your healing. And as you allow yourself to feel the anger, you may also discover sadness beneath it. Sadness for the years you lost to exhaustion. Sadness for the parts of yourself that withered from neglect. Sadness for relationships that were one-sided. Sadness for dreams that were never pursued. Sadness for the person you might have been if you had known then what you know now. This sadness, like the anger, is valid and necessary. Let yourself cry. Let yourself mourn. Do not rush to the other side of grief. Grief is not something to get over. It is something to move through, and it moves on its own timeline, not according to anyone else's expectations. As you grieve, you are clearing space in your heart for new growth. You are composting the past so it can become fertilizer for the future. Some of you may be wondering if there is a specific timeline for this transition. You want to know how long it will take before you feel clear about your purpose again. And while I wish I could give you a precise answer, the truth is that this journey is different for everyone. For some, clarity comes relatively quickly, within months. For others, it takes years. The timeline depends on many factors: how long you lived in patterns of compulsive giving, how much inner work you are willing to do, how much support you have, how willing you are to sit with discomfort instead of rushing back into old patterns. What I can tell you is this: the timeline does not matter as much as the quality of your engagement with the process. You can spend years in this transition and emerge no clearer than when you started if you are constantly resisting, distracting, or trying to skip over the hard parts. Or you can move through it more quickly if you are willing to be honest with yourself, to feel your feelings, to question your assumptions, and to stay open to what wants to emerge. Trust the process. Trust the timing. And trust that every single day, even the hard ones, you are moving toward something better. I also want to speak to those of you who are feeling pressure from others to figure it out quickly. Maybe family members are worried about you and keep asking what you are going to do next. Maybe friends are offering unsolicited advice about activities you should try or ways you should stay busy. Maybe society's messages about productivity and purpose are making you feel like you are failing by not having it all figured out. If you are experiencing this pressure, I want you to know that you have permission to set boundaries around it. You can kindly but firmly tell people that you are in a process of discernment and you will share when you are ready. You can ask them to trust you and support you without trying to fix you. You can limit your exposure to messages that make you feel inadequate. You can create a protective space around yourself while you do this important inner work. And if people cannot respect that, you can create distance from them for a season. Your healing is more important than their comfort. Let me also address the question of legacy, because I know this weighs on many of you. You look back on your years of giving and wonder what you have to show for it. The people you helped have moved on with their lives. The organizations you served have changed or no longer exist. The work you poured yourself into may have been forgotten or undone. And you wonder if it mattered at all, if there is any lasting evidence of the life you lived. This concern about legacy reveals a deep human need to know that our lives have meaning beyond our own experience. And I want to assure you that your life has had impact in ways you cannot see or measure. Every kind word you spoke, every moment of comfort you provided, every burden you helped carry, these things rippled out into the world in ways you will never fully know. The person you encouraged went on to encourage others. The child you nurtured grew up to nurture their own children. The colleague you supported found the strength to pursue their dreams. Your giving created waves that continue to move through the world long after you stopped actively serving. This is your legacy, and it is beautiful even if it is invisible to you. But I also want to challenge the very concept of legacy as it is commonly understood. Why does your life need to produce measurable, visible, lasting impact to have value? Why is it not enough to have lived, to have loved, to have experienced the sacred gift of existence? You are not a project that needs to produce results. You are a soul on a journey of becoming. And every experience, every relationship, every joy and sorrow, every mistake and triumph, all of it has shaped you into who you are. That is the real legacy. Not what you leave behind for others, but who you become in the process of living. And that becoming continues until your very last breath. You are still in process. Your story is still being written. And the most important chapters may still be ahead of you. As you move forward, I want you to consider the possibility that your new purpose might not look like purpose at all in the traditional sense. It might not be a role or title or mission. It might be something much simpler and more profound. Your purpose might be to finally learn how to be at peace, to accept yourself exactly as you are, to experience joy without guilt, to rest without shame, to receive without feeling you must earn it, to simply be present to the gift of life without constantly trying to prove your worth. These may not sound like lofty purposes, but in a world that is addicted to doing and achieving and producing, the act of being is revolutionary. And a person who has learned to be at peace with themselves radiates a presence that heals others without any deliberate effort to do so. You become a living testimony to the truth that worth is inherent, that rest is sacred, that there is more to life than constant striving. I want to speak now to a specific group among you. Those who gave not primarily out of love, but out of fear. Fear that if you did not make yourself indispensable, you would be abandoned. Fear that if you did not constantly prove your worth, you would be rejected. Fear that if you set boundaries, you would be punished or excluded. If this was your experience, then this transition is even more challenging because you are not just losing your purpose. You are confronting the fears that drove you to create that purpose in the first place. And those fears are terrifying because they were formed in times when you were vulnerable, when abandonment or rejection felt like life or death. But you are not that vulnerable person anymore. You are an adult with resources, wisdom, and choices. The fears that made sense when you were young no longer reflect your current reality. And part of your healing is learning to separate the past from the present, to see that you are safe now in ways you were not safe then, and to make choices based on your current truth rather than old fears. So here is what I ask of you. Make a commitment to yourself right now. Commit to engaging with this transition honestly and courageously. Commit to doing the inner work even when it is uncomfortable. Commit to seeking support when you need it. Commit to setting boundaries that honor your well-being. Commit to exploring who you are beneath the roles you have played. Commit to treating yourself with the same compassion you have shown others. Commit to trusting the process even when you cannot see the outcome. And commit to believing that your life has purpose, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Can you make this commitment? Can you choose yourself with the same dedication you have chosen others? This is what the divine is asking of you now. Not more giving, not more sacrifice, but the courage to turn your love and attention toward yourself, and to trust that in doing so, you are not being selfish, but are finally, coming home to the truth of who you have always been. I am Michael, and I have spoken these words with the full authority and love of the divine realm. I have seen your struggle, I have witnessed your pain, and I am holding you in perfect love as you walk through this threshold. You are not alone. You have never been alone. And you will never be alone. The divine is with you, I am with you, and all of heaven is supporting your journey toward wholeness. Trust this. Believe this. And let it give you the strength to take the next step, and the next, and the next, until one day you look back and realize that you have been transformed. The emptiness has become fullness. The confusion has become clarity. The pain has become wisdom. And the person you thought you lost has been found, more whole and true than ever before. This is my promise to you, and the promises of heaven do not fail. Walk forward with courage, beloved one. Your new purpose is waiting, and it is more beautiful than anything you can imagine. I stand with you now and always.